The glass table in the high-rise cafe felt like ice under Ife's palms. Across from her, Malik wasn't the man she'd shared a bed with for 18 months. He was a stranger in a bespoke suit, his eyes as flat as a dead sea. "The investment failed, Ife," he said, sliding a folder toward her. "The Lagos port project collapsed. Everything is gone." Ife's breath hitched. "Everything? Malik, that was my inheritance, my father's life work." Malik shrugged, a gesture so casual it felt like a physical blow. "Market volatility. It's in the contract you signed." Ife looked at the papers, then back at the man who had promised her a forever built on mutual dreams. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. The business trips, the late-night calls, the urgent wire transfers. It wasn't a tragedy, it was a harvest. "You never intended to invest it," she whispered. Malik stood up, checking his gold watch. "Believe what you want. I have a flight to catch." As he walked away, the pitying looks from the other patrons burned. Ife didn't cry. She stared at the empty seat, the shattered fragments of her trust hardening into a jagged, singular blade of purpose. "He's in Accra now," Kofi said, his fingers dancing across the mechanical keyboard. Ife sat in the dimly lit basement, the scent of old electronics and stale coffee thick in the air. Kofi was a ghost, a digital phantom she'd known since university. He stared at the monitors, a map of West Africa glowing on his face. "He's using a new name, Julian Mensa. He's already scouting a new target, a real estate mogul's daughter." Ife leaned in, her eyes reflecting the scrolling code. "I don't want to just stop him, Kofi," Ife said, her voice a low vibration. "I want to dismantle him. Every account, every alias, every lie." Kofi paused, looking at her with concern. "This isn't just a love scam, Ife. Malik is part of a syndicate. You pull one thread, the whole web shakes." Ife picked up a flash drive, the metal cold against her skin. "Then let it shake," she replied. "He thought I was a soft target because I loved him. He forgot that I was the one who managed my father's legal firm." She looked at the screen, watching a blinking dot in Ghana. Malik thought he had vanished into the mist, but Ife was the fog rolling in behind him. The gala in Accra was a sea of kente cloth, silk, and the heavy scent of expensive cologne. Ife stood on the balcony, her dark green dress blending into the shadows. Below, she saw him. Malik, now Julian, was leaning close to a young woman, his smile the same practiced masterpiece that had fooled Ife. "He's fast," a voice whispered beside her. It was Amina, the daughter of the mogul Malik was currently hunting. Ife didn't turn. "He's a predator. Predators don't wait to be hungry." Amina gripped the railing. "You're sure he's the one who ruined you?" Ife finally looked at her, seeing the same wide-eyed innocence she once possessed. "He didn't ruin me, Amina. He just changed my trajectory." Ife handed her a small, discreet earpiece. "Go back in. Act like the smitten heiress. Let him think he's winning. When he asks for the first bridge loan for his fake project, give him the account number I gave you." Amina looked terrified. "What happens then?" Ife watched Malik laugh at something Amina's father said. "Then," Ife said, "we start the transfer, not of money, but of his carefully constructed reality." Malik's office in the East Legon district was an altar to vanity, glass walls, Italian leather, and a view of a city he intended to bleed dry. He stared at the notification on his phone. A wire transfer of $50,000 had cleared. "Initial faith deposit," the memo read. He smirked, pouring himself a glass of aged whiskey. "Too easy," he muttered. He picked up his phone and dialed a contact saved only as The Weaver. "The girl is hooked. We move to phase 2 by Friday." What Malik didn't see was the tiny LED flickering on his router. In the basement miles away, Ife watched the transcript of his call scroll in real time. "He called a weaver," she noted. Kofi frowned. "That's high level. The weaver handles the laundering for the big boys in Abuja." Ife stood up, pacing the small room. Good. If Malik is the hand, the weaver is the heart. If we cut the hand, he's replaced. If we poison the heart, the whole body dies. She looked at the wire transfer notification. She hadn't sent Malik's money. She'd sent a traced sum from a dormant syndicate account she'd flagged weeks ago. Malik hadn't just taken bait, he'd taken a tracking chip disguised as gold. The meeting with the weaver took place in a silent, high-end cigar lounge. The man was older, his face a map of scars and calculated wisdom. Malik sat opposite him, feeling the weight of the room. "The girl's money is clean?" the weaver asked, his voice like gravel. Malik nodded. "Straight from her father's private reserve, traceless." The weaver exhaled a cloud of thick smoke. "It better be. We've had ghosts in the system lately. Someone is watching the transfers." Malik felt a bead of sweat at his hairline. "I have it under control." "Do you?" a voice interrupted. A server placed a fresh drink for Malik. As she leaned in, she whispered, "The Port Project says hello, Malik." Malik froze. He looked up, but the server was already moving away into the dim light. "What did she say?" the weaver demanded, his eyes narrowing. Malik forced a laugh, though his heart was hammering against his ribs. "Nothing, just confirming the order." But as he reached for his drink, his hand trembled. That name, the Port Project, only Ife knew the specific details of that lie. He looked around the room, the shadows suddenly feeling crowded. The hunter was beginning to feel the first cold brush of being the prey. Malik's penthouse was no longer a sanctuary. He paced the marble floor, his phone gripped so tight his knuckles turned white. "Kofi, find out who was working the lounge last night," he barked into the receiver. On the other end, silence, then a distorted click. "Malik?" a female voice whispered. Not his contact. It was Ife. Malik's heart skipped. "Ife, how did you get this number?" Ife's laugh was cold, metallic. "You gave it to me, remember? Along with your soul and my father's legacy." "I don't know what you're talking about," he hissed, though his eyes darted to the door. "Stay away from my business." Ife's voice dropped an octave. "Your business is a house of cards. I just pulled the bottom one. Check your clean account." Malik scrambled to his laptop, his fingers fumbling. The balance read 0. In its place was a single message, "Debt collected." A cold sweat broke across his brow. "That wasn't your money," he screamed. "That belonged to the weaver." Ife's response was a chilling whisper. "I know, and now he knows you lost it." The line went dead. Malik looked at the screen, the blue light reflecting the sheer terror in his eyes. The weaver's office didn't have windows. It was a concrete box beneath a textile factory in Accra, smelling of damp earth and iron. Malik knelt on the floor, the weaver's shadow looming over him like a shroud. "The money, Malik," the weaver said softly. $3 million, gone in a blink. Malik's voice cracked. "It was a hack. Ife, the woman from Lagos, she's behind this." The weaver tilted Malik's chin up with the tip of a cane. "I don't care about a woman's scorn. I care about my ledger. You were the custodian." "I can get it back," Malik pleaded. "Amina's father is about to sign the deed to the coastal land. It's worth triple the loss." The weaver leaned in, his breath smelling of bitter cola. "You have 48 hours. If the deed isn't in my hand, your skin will be on my wall." He signaled to his guards. Malik was shoved out into the humid night, gasping for air. He didn't see the black SUV parked across the street, nor did he see Ife behind the tinted glass, recording every second of his humiliation. "He's desperate now," Kofi muttered. Ife adjusted her glasses. "Good. Desperate men make mistakes, and Malik is about to make a fatal one." Malik's burst into Amina's villa, his face a mask of faux urgency. "Amina, we have to move now." He grabbed her hands. "The competitors found out about the coastal land. If your father doesn't sign the transfer papers tonight, we lose the deal of a lifetime." Amina looked at him, her eyes wide with manufactured fear. "But Malik, he's at the governor's dinner. He told me to wait." Malik squeezed her wrists, his mask slipping for a fraction of a second. There is no time to wait. Use his digital signature. You have the token. Amina hesitated, glancing at the laptop on the mahogany desk. He'll kill me if he finds out. Malik pulled her close, his voice honeyed poison. He'll thank you when he sees the profits. Do it for us, for our future. With trembling hands, Amina opened the portal. Malik watched like a vulture, his breath hitching as the progress bar climbed. Transaction pending. Is it done? He demanded. Amina nodded slowly. It's sent. Malik let go of her, a triumphant, ugly grin spreading across his face. He didn't notice the URL in the browser wasn't the land registry. It was a mirror site designed by Kofi, hosted on a server that led straight to a police task force. The governor's dinner was actually a quiet room in the back of a police precinct. Ife sat next to Amina's father, a man who looked less like a victim, more like a hunter. He took the bait, Commissioner, the mogul said, looking at the lead investigator. On the wall, a monitor showed the transfer being diverted into a secure government evidence locker. We have the signature, the IP address, and the confession of intent, the commissioner noted. Ife stood up, smoothing her skirt. It's not enough. We need the Weaver. The commissioner frowned. The Weaver is a ghost. We've tried for years. Ife stepped toward the map on the wall. Malik is going to lead you to him. He's terrified. He thinks he's delivering a fortune to save his life, but he's actually delivering a digital Trojan horse. She turned to Amina, who was wiping away real tears. You did well, Amina. You're the only one he didn't see coming. Ife's phone buzzed. A message from Malik. I have it. Meet me at the old docks at midnight to celebrate. Ife's eyes flashed with a cold fire. Tell the tactical team to gear up. It's time for the celebration to begin. The Atlantic Ocean crashed against the rusted pillars of the abandoned wharf. Malik stood by a crate, clutching a briefcase he believed contained the land deeds. He checked his watch, 11:55 p.m. A car's headlights cut through the fog. The Weaver stepped out, flanked by 4 armed men. You're early, Malik, the Weaver noted, his eyes scanning the perimeter. Malik held out the case. The coastal land, all 500 hectares, we're square. The Weaver signaled his man to check the documents. As the guard opened the case, a high-pitched whine began to emit from Malik's own pocket. What is that? The Weaver barked. Malik fumbled for his phone, but it was locked, the screen glowing blood red. Suddenly, floodlights erupted from the surrounding shipping containers. Police, drop your weapons, a voice boomed over a megaphone. The Weaver spun around, drawing a pistol. You set me up, he roared at Malik. Malik fell to his knees, hands up. I didn't, I swear. From the shadows behind the police line, Ife stepped into the light. Malik's eyes widened. Ife? She didn't respond. She simply watched as the handcuffs clicked shut on the man who thought she was nothing but a broken memory. The interrogation room smelled of bleach and fear. Malik sat bolted to the chair, his expensive suit stained with dock water. Ife watched him through the one-way glass, her expression unreadable. Beside her, the commissioner sighed. The Weaver isn't talking. He has high-priced lawyers on the way from Abuja. Without Malik's full testimony, the Trojan horse might not hold up in court. Ife didn't blink. Malik will talk. He's a parasite. He'll feed on whoever's closest to stay alive. She stepped into the room, the click of her heels echoing. Malik looked up, a spark of his old charm flickering. Ife, baby, they've got it all wrong. I was trying to get your money back from them. Ife pulled out a chair and sat, leaning close enough for him to see the coldness in her eyes. Don't baby me, Malik. I'm the one who put you here. She slid a single photo across the table, Malik's younger brother in Lagos, walking to school. Malik's face went pale. Leave him out of this. Ife leaned back. The Weaver thinks you betrayed him. You know how he handles families. Sign the confession, name every contact in the syndicate, and I'll make sure your brother's in a safe house before morning. If not, you're both ghosts. Kofi's apartment was a fortress of humming servers. "I've got it, Ife," he shouted, waving her over. "Malik's confession gave us the keys, but the digital ledger is deeper than we thought." On the screen, a web of shell companies blossomed. Lush greenery, azure imports, solid foundations. Each one was a hollow vessel used to drain women like Ife across 3 continents. "It wasn't just you," Kofi said quietly. "I've counted 42 victims in the last 2 years. Total haul, nearly $15 million. Ife stared at the names. Some were teachers, some were widows. All had been loved into poverty. "They didn't just steal money, Kofi. They stole their dignity." She pointed to a recurring payment to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. "Who is the queen bee?" Kofi frowned, his fingers blurring over the keys. "Malik didn't mention her." Ife's jaw tightened. "Because Malik doesn't know. He's just a foot soldier. The weaver isn't the head of this snake. He's the muscle. We need to find out who's holding the ledger." She realized then that her revenge wasn't just about her inheritance anymore. It was about a debt owed to 42 broken lives. The warning came in the form of a shattered window. Ife dove for the floor as a brick wrapped in a silk scarf tumbled into her living room. Outside, the screech of tires faded into the night. Ife unwrapped the scarf. Inside was a small, ornate brooch, a golden bee with ruby eyes. Her heart stopped. It was her mother's, a piece she thought had been lost in the investment Malik handled. Her phone buzzed with an unknown number. A woman's voice, smooth as honey and sharp as a razor, filled the line. "You're playing a dangerous game, Ethioma. Malik was a stray dog, the weaver was a tool, but you're touching the hive now." Ife stood up, ignoring the glass shards. "Who are you?" The woman laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a graveyard. "I'm the one who taught Malik everything he knew. I'm the one who turned your father's legacy into my empire. Stop now and you keep your life. Continue and you'll find out why bees die when they sting." Ife looked at the brooch. "You made one mistake," she whispered. "You showed me you're afraid. You're not a queen. You're a thief hiding behind a curtain." The trail went back to where it all began, Lagos. Ife stood outside a crumbling colonial mansion in Ikoyi, the gate rusted shut. This was the registered address for lush greenery. "Kifi, are you seeing this?" she whispered into her lapel mic. From the van down the street, Kofi's voice crackled. "The power is on, Ife. Servers are active inside, but the house is officially listed as abandoned." Ife scaled the back wall, her dark clothes making her a shadow among shadows. Inside, the house was a paradox. The exterior was a ruin, but the interior was a high-tech hub. Rows of computers were being operated by young men in headsets. A love factory. She watched as one typed a message to a woman in London. "I dream of our wedding, Sarah. Just a small loan for the visa." Ife felt a surge of nausea. At the center of the room was a desk. Sitting there was a woman Ife recognized from her childhood, Auntie Bisi, her father's former secretary. Bisi lived up, sensing the intrusion. "Ifeoma," Bisi said, not sounding surprised at all. "You were always too smart for your own good, just like your father. That's why he had to go." "You killed him?" Ife said, her voice trembling with a rage so cold it burned. Bisi stood up, smoothing her expensive lace wrapper. "Your father was weak. He had all that capital and used it to build schools? Pathetic. I showed him how to make real money." She gestured to the room of scammers. "We provide hope, Ifeoma. Hope is the most expensive commodity in the world. People pay everything for it." Bisi pulled a small silver pistol from her drawer. "Malik was supposed to bring you into the fold, not bleed you dry. He got greedy. That was his failure." "The police are 10 minutes away," Ife lied, her eyes darting to the exit. BC smiled. In Lagos, I own the police, the courts, and the cable you're using to talk to your little friend in the van. She leveled the gun at Ife's chest. You came here for revenge, but you found the truth. The world isn't built on love. It's built on the leverage you have over someone else's heart. Suddenly, the monitors in the room flickered and died. A deep, rhythmic thumping began to shake the floorboards. What is that? BC hissed. Ife smiled, her fear vanishing. That, Ife said, is Kofi. He didn't just cut your power, he just broadcast your confession to every news station in the country. You're not the queen bee anymore, BC. You're just a bug on the windshield. The room erupted. BC soldiers scrambled as their screens turned into a looping video of BC admitting to the fraud. Kill the feed, BC screamed, but the keyboards were locked. She turned the silver pistol back toward Ife, her face contorted in a mask of pure malice. You think a broadcast saves you? You're dead before the first commercial break. Ife didn't wait. She lunged behind a heavy mahogany filing cabinet, just as a bullet splintered the wood where her head had been. Kifi, now! Ife yelled into her mic. Outside, the perimeter lights of the mansion began to strobe violently, a pre-programmed distraction. The young men in the headsets weren't fighters. They bolted for the windows, leaving BC alone in her crumbling digital empire. Ife peered over the cabinet, seeing BC fumbling with a fresh magazine. It's over, BC. The house is surrounded by people who actually cared about my father. Ife threw a heavy stapler toward the left. BC fired blindly in that direction. Ife used the second of distraction to sprint toward the back hallway. She wasn't just escaping, she was leading BC toward the server room, the heart of the evidence. The server room was a cramped closet humming with heat and the smell of ozone. Ife slammed the door and shoved a metal rack against it just as BC's shoulder hit the wood from the other side. Open it, Ifeoma. You can't hide in a cage of your own making, BC roared. Ife ignored her, pulling a rugged tablet from her bag.
Kofi, I'm at the master node. How long to dump the offshore ledger? Kofi's voice was strained. The queen bee has a dead man switch. If I force the download, the servers will self-destruct. You have to manually bypass the thermal lock. Smoke began to seep under the door. BC had stopped shouting. Now the smell of gasoline filled the air. She's burning the house down, Ife whispered, her heart hammering. She'd rather lose everything than let me have the proof. Ife looked at the wires, a chaotic nest of red and blue. She remembered her father teaching her how to fix the office generators when she was 10. Precision over power, Ifeoma. With steady fingers, she stripped a copper wire and jumped the connection. The tablet screen turned green. Download progress, 15%, 40%. The heat in the room became unbearable. The door began to char, the wood glowing red. The fire roared, a hungry beast devouring the mansion's secrets. Ife coughed, her lungs burning, her eyes fixed on the progress bar. 98%, 100%. Download complete. She shoved the tablet into her fire-resistant pouch, just as the server rack behind her exploded in a shower of sparks. The door finally gave way, but it wasn't BC who stepped through the flames. It was the Weaver. He looked like a demon in the orange light, his suit singed, a heavy wrench in his hand. BC is gone, he growled. She took the car, but she left me to clean up the mess. The Weaver swung the wrench. Ife rolled, the heavy metal smashing into a server unit. She was trapped between the fire and a killer. She'll betray you too, Ife gasped, clutching a broken piece of computer casing. She already has. The money in the Cayman account is moving as we speak. She's leaving you to burn. The Weaver paused, his eyes flickering to the wall of monitors now showing empty balances. In that second of doubt, Ife lunged. She didn't use her fists. She jammed the sharp edge of the computer casing into the server's exposed power supply. A massive electrical arc threw them both backward. The Weaver hit the wall, unconscious. Ife scrambled through the smoke, fueled by adrenaline and a refusal to die in BC's shadow. Ife emerged from the burning mansion like a specter, her face smeared with soot, her clothes tattered. The street was chaos, neighbors with buckets, distant sirens, and the flash of camera phones. She saw the black van at the corner. Kofi jumped out, catching her before she collapsed. "I got it, Ife. The ledger is live. The whole world is seeing the Queen Bee for what she is." Ife looked back at the flames. "Where is she?" Kofi pointed toward the bridge. "She's heading for the private docks. She has a boat waiting." "Not for long," Ife said, her voice raspy. She climbed into the driver's seat, pushing Kofi aside. "Ife, you're no condition." "She took my father's life and my mother's legacy," Ife interrupted, her eyes cold as flint. "I'm not watching her sail away." She floored the accelerator, the van roaring to life. On the dashboard, a tracking dot pulsed red, BC's car moving toward the Lagos Lagoon. The betrayal had come full circle. From a love scam in a cafe to a high-speed hunt through the streets of Lagos, the shattered stories were finally being pieced together into a weapon of finality. The private pier was isolated, shadowed by palm trees and the distant hum of the city. BC was at the end of the dock, screaming at a boat captain who seemed hesitant to start the engine. "I don't care about the storm. Move!" BC yelled, clutching a leather bag, her final reserves of cash. The van screeched to a halt at the entrance of the pier. Ife stepped out, the tablet in her hand. "The accounts are frozen, BC. That bag is just paper now." BC spun around, her eyes wild. "You just don't stop, do you?" She pulled the silver pistol one last time, but her hand was shaking. "I built this. I gave those boys jobs. I made something from nothing." Ife walked down the pier, step by measured step. "You stole hope from the desperate. You used love as a hook." A police helicopter suddenly crested the tree line, its spotlight pinning BC to the wooden planks. "Drop the weapon," a voice boomed from above. BC looked at the sky, then at Ife, then at the dark, churning water of the lagoon. She realized the tide had finally turned. The queen bee was out of honey, and she was all alone in the hive. The spotlight from the helicopter turned the lagoon into a stage. BC looked at the silver pistol, then at Ife, then at the dark water. "I won't rot in a cell, Ifeoma," she screamed over the roar of the blades. "I was a queen!" With a guttural cry, BC didn't fire at Ife. She threw the bag of worthless cash into the air, a snowstorm of paper, and leapt into the black current of the Lagos Lagoon. Ife rushed to the edge of the pier, watching the ripples swallow the woman who had orchestrated her ruin. The police boat's sirens wailed nearby, searchlights cutting through the water, but the current was treacherous. "Did she make it?" Kofi asked, running up behind her. Ife stood tall, the wind whipping her hair. "It doesn't matter," Ife replied. "Her empire is gone. The myth of the queen bee drowned the moment she jumped." She felt a strange lightness, the heavy burden of vengeance finally shifting into the quiet satisfaction of justice. The hunter had finished the chase. 2 weeks later, the Lagos High Court was a media circus. Malik, shackled and looking gaunt, was led into the dock. He looked at Ife, pleading for a shred of the mercy he'd once exploited. Ife didn't blink. She sat in the front row, a witness to the destruction of the syndicate. One by one, the soldiers from the Ikoyi mansion testified, trading secrets for leniency. The weaver sat in the corner, his silence a testament to his defeat. The lead prosecutor stood, holding Ife's tablet aloft. "This device contains the names of every victim, every shell company, and every cent stolen." The room fell silent as the judge leaned forward. This wasn't just a scam, it was a war on the vulnerable. Malik was sentenced to 25 years. As they led him away, he tried to catch Ife's eye one last time. "I really did love you, Ife." Ife stood up, smoothing her suit. "No, Malik," she said, loud enough for the gallery to hear. "You loved the version of me you could control. That woman is dead." Ife didn't keep the recovered funds. She sat in a sterile office with the commissioner and a team of forensic accountants. "We've traced 80% of the offshore holdings," the commissioner noted. "It's enough to repay every woman on that list with interest." Ife looked at the names: widows in Nairobi, students in London, mothers in Accra. Good, Ife said, but don't just send a check, send a letter. Tell them it wasn't their fault they believed in love. Kofi entered holding a laptop. The foundation is set up, Ife, the Harper legacy. We're using the remaining syndicate assets to fund a digital security center for women. Ife nodded, looking at a photo of her father on her desk. His schools were being rebuilt, but his true legacy was now a shield. He would have liked that, she whispered. She realized that while Malik had stolen her past, he had inadvertently forced her to build a future that was untouchable. The shattered stories were being rewritten as a manual for survival. Rumors began to swirl in the Lagos underworld. Some said Bisi had washed up in Cotonou. Others claimed she was hiding in a village, her face scarred by the fire. Ife sat on her balcony, overlooking the city that had tried to break her. A small package arrived, unmarked. Inside was the golden bee brooch, cleaned and polished, with a note, "The hive never truly dies." Ife didn't panic. She didn't call the police. She walked to the railing and held the brooch over the edge. "You're trying to stay relevant, BC," Ife said to the empty air, "but a ghost has no power over the living." She let go. The gold glinted once before disappearing into the garden below. She went back inside and locked the door, not out of fear, but as a final gesture of closure. The queen bee was a memory. Ifeoma Harper was a reality. The city of Lagos pulsed with life below her. Ife stood by the window, the same way she had on the night that Malik left her, but the reflection in the glass was unrecognizable. She was no longer the victim of a love scam. She was the architect of a new order. The river of her life had been diverted, but she had learned to shape its course. She picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. "Amina, it's Ife. The first class for the foundation starts tomorrow. Are you ready?" Amina's voice came through, strong and clear. "I'm ready." Ife smiled, looking out at the restless city lights. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits, and when it moves, it does so with a purpose that could never be shattered again. Her story was no longer about what was taken, but about what she had chosen to build from the ruins.